Let's talk about the formalities of sending messages in a workplace. Email etiquette. Email etiquette is the use of appropriate language, conventions, and formality in an email. Why is it important to learn these formalities? Again, practicing professionalism is all about acting in a good manners in a certain workplace. This topic is very related since it is where you can communicate with other employees, workmates, and top-level heads. I'm gonna show you three etiquette for sending messages in email. First is the form and tone of messages, responding to messages, and lastly, organizing the different parts of email. Why is it important to understand these three general etiquette in sending messages? Usually, business demand formal language and strict adherence to proper grammar and spelling. Using appropriate email etiquette shows the email's recipient that you care about your relationship with them, you value your professionalism, and you represent the companies for which you will work well. Maintaining a professional tone is that it is usually about your professional tone that uses clear messages, appropriate language rather than using abbreviations and colloquialism. In responding to messages and this organizing the different parts of email, all of this are effective when sending messages. It is because you set your messages as a clear and precise message to whom you are sending with, using a proper salutation and introduction, and you pay attention to the subject line. Telephone etiquette is somewhat related to email etiquette because you're using a transmitter that connects to others, but this one, you should be careful when dealing phone calls because the way you answer shows your manners and how you present yourself and your business via telephone communications. Now I'm gonna only give you the do's and don'ts in answering and making phone calls. The first is answer a call within 3 rings. If your position entails always being available to callers, you should actually be available. Next is immediately introduce yourself. Upon picking up the phone, you should confirm with the person whom they have called. Next is speak clearly. Phone calls, while a great option for those who detest in-person interaction, do require very strong communication skills. You always want to speak as clearly as possible. Project your voice without shouting. You want to be heard and avoid having to repeat yourself. And lastly, actively listen and take notes. Speaking of paying attention to your customers, it's essential that you're actively listening to them throughout the conversation, meaning hearing everything they have to say and basing your response off their comments rather than using a prescribed script. After the dose of telephone etiquette, now I'm going to discuss about the don'ts. First is do not be distracted. Although the caller may not be able to see what you're doing, if they don't have your full attention, it will be heard in your tone and responses. Next is don't shout or whisper. Being overly loud or overly quiet can make a phone conversation very awkward and might mean you don't get all the information to the person on the other end. Try and speak in a calm tone that will be easy to hear and understand. And lastly, do not leave the caller on hold for too long. No one likes sitting on hold. If you leave your caller on hold for too long, they may think they have been forgotten and may hang up. If this is a business call, this could result in a lost sale or an unhappy customer. That's it about telephone and email etiquette.